Before we get started, I wanted to remind you that we are collecting email addresses for our upcoming newsletter that we'll be releasing to all of you and to anyone in your network that you want to receive our information from. Because in light of many things that are happening globally on many levels, our message is a very important message to help human society in its quest to find peace and happiness in this world, which are something that is not available even in the previous movement that we were involved in. As you all know, Jiva Goswami. And recently I've been posting. I use different medias for whatever reason. I've been on them for 13, 14 years. So it's something you do at least to reach a few people. I tell them that we really are very selective in who we have in our classes, that we want people that are specifically focused on Srila Prabhupada as Guru, both Diksha Guru and Siksha Guru. And oftentimes we get people that like even today, I had someone say that I can only accept a guru that is in a physical body. And they asked me that question, how can you accept Prabhupada when he's no longer with us? And I explained to him that Prabhupada is still present with us in his Vani incarnation, and that Prabhupada is also present in his instructions to all of us, his personal explanations of Krishna consciousness. And I've been reading this letter to us recently. You should invite, my advice to you is to go on chanting Hare Krishna and read my books very carefully. So he wrote this to a devotee in Toronto. And you should memorize my books and repeat what I say. So, I mean, that's the theme of our group, is to thoroughly understand Prabhupada's teachings and repeat them as he's presented it to us, to other people, so they can also feel the potency of Krishna consciousness coming down in disciplic succession properly, not by mental speculation. I'll just finish off by saying that I think all of you recently saw some kind of video from one of the people in that former movement that we were members of. And everything that they were saying was coming specifically from the mental platform. It wasn't coming from Prabhupada's books or from his letters or from his instructions, but it was coming strictly from their interpretation of what they think it is. So this type of mental speculation has caused a lot of trouble globally for everyone. And, all of us are going to avoid that by remembering to always repeat carefully or learn carefully what Prabhupada has spoken and repeat it to others like he has explained it to us. So we'll go ahead and enjoy the class. I'm going to invite our speaker this evening, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, a good friend of ours and a great devotee of Srila Prabhupada, to carry on with the class. Hare Krishna.
So welcome everybody. We will repeat some invocation verses and then we will resume our reading from Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani pracharine nirvishesha shunyavadi pashatyadishatarine namo mahabadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Gaudodaye Pushpavantu Chitru Shamdu Tamonudu Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We are reading from the original 1974 Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta. All translations, synonyms, and purports and commentaries by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. We are reading from the Adi Lila, Chapter 1, and text number 36. Sri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha Sri Rupa Srila Rupa Goswami Sanatan Goswami Bhatta Raghunath Bhatta Goswami Sri Jiva Srila Jiva Goswami Gopal Bhatta Goswami Dasa Raghunath Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The instructing spiritual masters are Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. Text number 37. Ichai Guru Shiksha Guru Je Amar Tan Sabara Pada Padma Koti Namaskara. These Chaya 6 Guru, spiritual masters, Shiksha Guru, instructing spiritual masters, Ye who are, Amar my, Tan Sabar, of all of them, Pada Padme, unto the lotus feet, Koti, 10 million, Namaskar, respectful obeisances. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. These 6 are my instructing spiritual masters, and therefore I offer millions of respectful obeisances unto their lotus feet. Purport by His Divine Grace. By accepting the 6 Goswamis as his instructing spiritual masters, the author specifically makes it clear that one should not be recognized as a Gaudiya Vaishnava if he is not obedient to them. Text number 38. Bhagavanera Bhakta Yata Srivasa Pradhan Tan Sabara Padapadme Sahasra Pranam. Bhagavanera, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhakta, the devotees, Yata, as many as there are, Srivas Pradhan, headed by Sri Srivas, Tan Sabhar, of all of them, Padapadme, unto the lotus feet, Sahasra, thousands. Pranama, respectful obeisances. Translation by Prabhupada. There are innumerable devotees of the Lord, of whom Srivas Thakur is the foremost. I offer my respectful obeisances thousands of times unto their lotus feet. Text number 39. Advaita-ācārya Prabhu-ramsha avatar, Tandra pada padme koti pranati amar. Advaita-ācārya, Prabhura of the Supreme Lord, Amsha, partial, Avatar, incarnation, Tanra of him, Pada Padme, unto the lotus feet, Koti, 10 million, Pranati, respectful obeisances, Amar, my. Translation. Advaita-ācārya is the Lord partial incarnation, and therefore I offer my obeisances millions of times at his lotus feet. Text number 40. Nityanandarai Prabhupada Swarupa Prakash, Tandra Pada Padma Vandonjara Muhidas. Nityanandarai, Lord Nityananda, Prabhupada of the Supreme Lord, Swarupa Prakash, personal manifestation, Tandra of him, Pada Padma, unto the lotus feet, Vando, I offer respectful obeisances, Yanra, of whom, Mui, I am, Dasa, the servant. Translation by His Divine Grace. Srila Nityanandaram is the plenary manifestation of the Lord, and I have been initiated by him. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Text 41. Gadadara Pandita Di Prabhur Nija Shakti, Tansabara Charanamura Sahasra Panati, Gadadara Pandit Adi, headed by Sri Gadadhar Pandit, Prabhura of the Supreme Lord, Nija Shakti, internal potencies, Tansabar of all of them, Charani, unto the lotus feet, Mora, my, Sahasra, thousands, Pranati, respectful obeisances. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the internal potencies of the Lord, of whom Sri Gadadhar Prabhu is the foremost. Text number 42. Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Swayam Bhagavan Tanhara Padara Vinde Ananta Pranam Sri Krishna Caitanya, Lord Sri Krishna Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhu, the Supreme Lord, Swayam Bhagavan, is the original personality of Godhead, Tanhar, his, Pada Aravinde, unto the lotus feet, Ananta, innumerable, Pranama, respectful obeisances. Translation by Prabhupada. Lord Sri Krishna Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the personality of Godhead himself, and therefore I offer innumerable prostrations at his lotus feet. Text number 43. Sabarane Prabhur Karya Namaskar, Ichaitan Huryache Karye Vichar, Saba Avarane, along with his associates, Prabhure, unto Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kariya, having made, Namaskar, respectful obeisances, these, Chaya, 6, Tenho, he, Yaiche, what they are, Kariye, I make, Vichar, discussion. Translation by Prabhupada. Having offered obeisances unto the Lord and all his associates, I shall now try to explain these 6 diversities in one. Purport. There are many unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all of whom are considered associates surrounding the Lord. Krishna should be worshipped with his devotees. The diverse principles are therefore the eternal paraphernalia through which the absolute truth can be approached. Text number 44. Yadyapi amar Guru Caitanya-caritāmṛta tatapi janyayami tanhara prakash. Yadyapi, even though, amar, my, Guru, spiritual master, Caitanya, of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Dāsa, the servitor, tatapi, still, janiye, no, ami, I, tanhara, of the Lord, prakasha, direct manifestation. Translation by Prabhupada. Although I know that my spiritual master is a servitor of Lord Sri Chaitanya, I know him also as a plenary manifestation of the Lord. Purport by Prabhupada. Every living entity is essentially a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the spiritual master is also his servant. Still, the spiritual master is a direct manifestation of the Lord. With this conviction, a disciple can advance in Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master is non-different from Krishna because he's a manifestation of Krishna. Lord Nityananda, who is Balaram himself, the first direct manifestation or expansion of Krishna, is the original spiritual master. He helps Lord Krishna in his pastimes, and he's a servant of the Lord. Every living entity is eternally a servant of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Therefore, the spiritual master cannot be other than a servant of Lord Chaitanya. The spiritual master's eternal occupation is to expand the service of the Lord by training disciples in a service attitude. A spiritual master never poses as the Supreme Lord himself. He is considered a representative of the Lord. The revealed scriptures prohibit one's pretending to be God, but a bona fide spiritual master is a most faithful and confidential servant of the Lord, and therefore deserves as much respect as Krishna. We can open the discussion. Would anybody like to make comments regarding this purport? Yes, go ahead, Viśvakarmā.
I wanted to ask you a question. In this purport, Prabhupada says that the spiritual master never poses as the Supreme Lord himself. He is considered a representative of the Lord. Now, there was something that took place, I believe, in 1970, where Kirtanananda and Brahmananda were telling the devotees that Prabhupada was Krishna, was God. And there was a pastime related to that. I wonder if you could illuminate us on that pastime.
What happened is Srila Prabhupada gave sannyas to Brahmananda, Gargamuni, Vishnujan, and Subal in July of 1970 in Los Angeles. And after that, he told them to go out and preach. So they went out and preached, and they ended up in New Vrindavan for Janmashtami festival in 1970. And what was reported is that they were preaching that the Prabhupada was very displeased with the devotees, and he was withdrawing his mercy from the movement, and that Prabhupada is Krishna. So Prabhupada basically, when he heard that, he basically protested. say this is not the correct understanding of the position of the spiritual master. Prabhupada said this is the wrong understanding, because if one day you become a spiritual master, does it mean that you become Krishna also? So there was a lot of defects in that particular philosophy. Now, one thing is, later on in 1971, Srila Prabhupada sent Brahmananda and Gargamuni to Pakistan and East Pakistan, respectively. So they went there, and then there was a report that some 4 Western devotees had been killed in Pakistan. There was not sufficient details. So what happened is Brahmananda Swami Prabhupāda was able to extricate himself from Pakistan and went to Bombay. And Prabhupada was in Bombay at the time. And basically, the devotees had rented a flat in a building called the Akash Ganga that was near the ocean in Bombay. So Brahmananda made his way there when Prabhupada saw him, because there was very little news, factual news of what really was going on during the wartime. So when Brahmananda showed up in Bombay, Prabhupada got up and went and embraced him. So then Brahmananda personally told me this story, that he asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, we love you. We don't really know what happened in Los Angeles and New Vrindavan in 1970. And Prabhupada told him, says, actually, you have been victimized by the mystic power of some of my godbrothers. This is what has happened to you. So Prabhupada basically forgave them and gave them his mercy, and they did a lot of preaching in many different places, both Brahmananda and Gargamuni. But this was a warning by Srila Prabhupada about not associating with his godbrothers. By 1970, because Prabhupada, when he came to America, he tried to get some of his godbrothers involved in the movement, in the Krishna Consciousness movement, the preaching in America. He requested some lamb at Mayapur, that was rejected. He requested some of them to come and help him, that was rejected. He got a lot of criticism from various sannyasis, senior sannyasis in the Gaudiya Math, and there was a lot of problems. Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, was trying to expand the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, following the order of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, and he was getting very little help. Some of them wrote some letters of commendation that Prabhupada was a bona fide Gaudiya Vaishnava sannyasi. That was nice, but Prabhupada was wanting to get some of these people to physically come to the West and preach with him. They didn't want to. And actually, many of them became outright envious. By 1970, it was clear they were trying to interfere in the expansion of the movement. Brahmananda told me a story how in 1970, after the San Francisco Rath Yatra on July 5th, there was some newspaper article with some very strange Bengali terms that no Westerner would even know with regards to the preaching of Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada knew there was some infiltration of some of his godbrothers with regards to his preaching. There was some malefic influence. And around that time, Prabhupada wrote a letter to Hamsaduta. He says, it is a fact that a great sinister movement has infiltrated into the society. I'm paraphrasing here. But the word sinister movement were used by Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada gave many letters, many instructions not to associate with them, not to read their books, not to go with them. As a matter of fact, one time there was a letter from Yamuna Devi Dasi. She was asking about the Gaudiya Math. And Srila Prabhupada wrote that our position has nothing to do with them. And this culminated until 1972 at Mayapur, when 2 senior sannyasis from the Gaudiya Math came to visit Srila Prabhupada. They came to visit Srila Prabhupada, And there was a very animated discussion that started. So Prabhupada requested all of us to leave the room. This was when Prabhupada was living in a bamboo hut on the left side of the gate at Mayapur. So we all left the room, but we could see just outside that there was a very animated discussion going on. And their voices were being raised and all kinds of words like Prabhu and Prabhupada and Swamiji and Swami Maharaj. And at one point they were pointing their fingers at Prabhupada, raising their voices. So Prabhupada rang his bell. He had a bell on his desk. And Srila Prabhupada's secretary and servant came there. Prabhupada says, "You bring me my letterhead." So when the letterhead came, Prabhupada pointed out to them, "My name is Sridandi Goswami A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. I do not call myself Prabhupada. My disciples call me Prabhupada." Because this title of Prabhupada was given to him by devotees in New York in 1968-69. And the devotees really picked up on it. But they became very displeased with that, and they walked off, and they stepped over prasadam that had been cooked by a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta named Ananda Prabhu, who used to be Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's cook. So after that, they started to make a lot of propaganda against our Srila Prabhupada. So this is a long story, but I'm just trying to give the gist of it, that Prabhupada had a lot of problems with many of his god brothers. It is sad, but that's the reality of what we are facing. And it's still there today with many of their followers. Yes, Viśvakarmā Prabhu, you raise your hand.
Prabhu, I wanted to, based on this reading today, Prabhupada is in text 37. The verse, "These six are my instructing spiritual masters, and therefore I offer millions of respectful obeisances unto their lotus feet." Purport: by accepting the six Goswamis as instructing spiritual masters, the author specifically makes it clear that one should not be recognized as a Gaudiya Vaishnava if he is not obedient to them. Now, in the particular case of the authenticity of a Vaishnava who accepts initiation from an unauthorized guru who claims to be in our disciplic succession, but by their words and actions, they do not represent the example that Prabhupada set for all of us to follow. Are these people considered to be Vaishnavas? They're claiming to be Vaishnavas because they have this initiation, such and such Das and such Devi Dasi, but they haven't been, their guru has not recognized the six Goswamis or their guru, Srila Prabhupada, as the recognized authority in our disciplic succession. How should we look upon them?
Well, this is a very important question. I mean, as a matter of fact, last night, California time, I got an inquiry from an old friend in India, in South India, saying that he just had a discussion with some people from ISKCON Bombay regarding who is actually delivering the devotees, the new devotees. So the position of this devotee is that Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, is the one that is delivering the various devotees. And their objection to that, the ISKCON Bombay group, is that no, there are Diksha gurus, there's Shiksha gurus, there's Vratma Pradarshaka gurus, there's so many different persons, and the disciple also has to make some effort. There's so many misconceptions and misunderstandings in their position, because this is the result of rejecting and disobeying the order of Srila Prabhupada with regards to initiation in its society. And you touched upon this earlier in this discussion when you said that some devotees do not accept that Srila Prabhupada can initiate somebody now. Well, how that takes place has to be understood properly. It's not that Prabhupada is going to appear on Garuda or fly in a flower airplane. No. Prabhupada designated a system, ordered a system in 1977 that people could become his initiated disciple through the via media of a physically present person called officiating representative, called by Srila Prabhupada Ritviks. And Prabhupada says others can also do senior sannyasis. In other words, Prabhupada would never had the intention of setting up some exclusive club or some exclusive elite that would claim, like caste Goswamis or caste Brahmins, that they're the only ones who can actually carry on this process of initiation. Prabhupada never ordered any of his disciples to be a Diksha Guru. If somebody can show that, they would have been to show it in the last 45 years. It is not there. As a matter of fact, the secretary of that group admitted on the 3rd of December, 1980 in Topanga Canyon, California, that this whole idea of appointment of gurus is a myth. It's mythology. In other words, it's a falsehood. Because nobody can prove this. When and where did Prabhupada specifically give that order to any of his disciples to be a Diksha Guru? But we can document very nicely, and we have done so, that in 1977, specifically on July 9th, that Prabhupada basically gave that order for people to carry that process of initiation. Later on, he says, continue to act as a Ritvik. You know, Prabhupada set up that system by which people would accept him as the Acharya. How is that done? Through his transcendental knowledge, Divyam Jnanam. He is given the Divyam Jnanam today through his unrevised books. So this is a very important point, because some people still have the illusory idea, this mythology idea, that some way or other people just became Diksha Gurus. No, they didn't become Diksha Gurus. They claimed they had been appointed. That is a falsehood. That was a lie. That was a nonsensical misinterpretation. And this has been the root cause of all the problem and misunderstanding of the movement, the root cause of all the fall downs and all the madness. Okay, Venkat Prabhu, you raised your hand.
Hare Krishna. I had a question about this. There are some people who say that Prabhupada never gave instruction for anyone else other than the original 11 to become officiating acharyas. So they say only those 11 can do initiations on behalf of Prabhupada, and if anyone else is doing it, then it's again going against the instructions of Prabhupada. So how can we understand that?
That is not accurate. I was the first devotee in ISKCON who saw that letter, that July 9th letter, that came out of Prabhupada's room. The secretary showed me that letter, and I had a conversation with him. I said, what does this mean? He said, it means they're going to initiate on behalf of Prabhupada. And I said, can others also do this? Prabhupada said, yes, others can be added. And I said, what about after Prabhupada's departure? And the secretary said, they're going to be Ritviks. It's all on tape. That's what Prabhupada, of course, he denied everything. But there is evidence that Prabhupada wanted others to also carry on this process. Because I've been asked by people, well, who are you? Who gave you authorization? I said, Prabhupada did, like he did to so many other disciples. So many other disciples were authorized by Prabhupada to do it. It was never meant to be an exclusive caste Brahmin-like group. No, that was not Prabhupada's intent. Yes, Balaram Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes, agreed. Even when Srila Prabhupada was here, I have about 3 or 4 personal letters where we were, in absence of Srila Prabhupada's personal association at the temple, we were recommending devotees. So we had to act as a Ritvik, in a Ritvik capacity by carrying out the formalities. And at the same time, there's a very famous conversation with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj with the Zamindar. And he was specifically asked in this conversation, can a Madhyamadhikari give Diksha? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was very specific. He said, only the Uttama Adhikari can give Diksha. He said the Madhyamadhikari can only perform the formalities of the initiation. So we understand the formalities are the fire jagga, maybe even the giving of the name, but the Diksha can only be from the Uttama Adhikari. And we say, who is the Uttama Adhikari in ISKCON? The founder and the Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, is sitting on the Vyasa-san in every ISKCON temple. And they wonder who is the person giving Diksha. As you said, Srila Prabhupada's transcendental literatures, no one can claim that they're getting some information from somewhere else. Everything is coming from Srila Prabhupada, from his lectures that we read every day, you hear every day, his books that we read every day, conversations and interviews. So everything is coming from Srila Prabhupada. So these deniers, that's all they are, deniers. So thank you very much for your wonderful readings as well.
Another point I want to make is that Prabhupada is present in that deity. There are several letters and conversation where Srila Prabhupada answered questions from devotees who asked him, well, people are offering prasadam to this deity. Are you present? Prabhupada says, yes. The spiritual master is present in that deity. One time he answered a letter that he was present in his picture, but Prabhupada also specified, I am more present in my books. So in other words, this idea that only a certain people who have been voted in can do this is nonsense. This is elitism, and Prabhupada did not say that. I mean, I was personally told that others can do. Another point that should be mentioned here, that it's while we're discussing this, it's very interesting that many of the conversations that took place at that time are no longer available. They were not recorded. For example, there's a letter with 11 names and a conversation with 9 names. So there had to be some other conversation where these other 2 names were added by Srila Prabhupada. I'm not disputing the bona fide appointment of these people by Srila Prabhupada. My point is there had to be another conversation which is not available. There are many conversations which Srila Prabhupada spoke about this, which are no longer available. That should raise a red flag to any intelligent person. For example, in Topanga Canyon, the secretary said that Prabhupada had been talking about this, and then 5 or 6 of us went to Srila Prabhupada. He's referring to the May 28, 1977 conversation. So where are these previous conversations where Prabhupada had been talking about this? Nobody can find them. So any intelligent person with a little bit of logic and reason can understand this point. As far as the idea that only the GBC and ISKCON can authorize this, well, they've already said they'll never authorize this. They've illegally and unauthorizedly assumed the position of Acharya on the basis of a falsehood and a wrong interpretation. How are they going to reverse back and admit they were wrong? Now they have all kinds of interpretation of the living guru is this. They're trying to filter all of these purports in Prabhupada's books about being Acharya to their position. That's why they invented this whole voting system. In 1986, when there was so many problems, rather than go back and admit they had never been appointed as Acharyas or Diksha Gurus, what they did is invent some rationalization to vote in other gurus. And when people started to question, well, what is this voting idea? Where did Prabhupada ever authorize this idea of voting Acharyas? Because anybody reasonably conversant with Srila Prabhupada books can tell that it's not there anywhere. So there's a lot of problems with that system. Yes, Viśvakarmā, your hand is raised.
Thank you. Further, Vinkat, I wanted to say that this problem of electing gurus, which is contrary, because fundamentally that's what the GBC are doing, is electing gurus. And it's ecclesiastical body that's voting that you're a guru. And let's put it this way, in the case of many of these people that have been elected guru, whether they're they're offshoots of the original 11 people that Prabhupada voted in as elected guru. They assumed that role because they were ambitious. You have no idea how ambitious they were when they came to Vrindavan, when Prabhupada was leaving his body. They were dividing the world up right there in front of our eyes, deciding which zone would be taken by which so-called Ritvik. And when I was in Toronto, I stayed in Toronto because we had such a large temple, and I had seen Prabhupada 3 times in the previous year. So I thought it was more important for me to stay and protect his temple, because Prabhupada always told us that service and separation of the guru is the highest service you can perform. Not to be there necessarily, like a lot of these people thought, oh, I'll be Prabhupada's servant. To do what? To cook his chapatis? To wash his laundry? I'm not minimizing it as a not important service. It is certainly a blessing for people, but it was much more important for us to man his temples, to maintain what he was trying to establish throughout the world. And he was counting on his senior disciples to take up that responsibility. And the most important responsibility was given to the temple presidents, not to the GBC. This GBC group has completely deviated from Prabhupada's management system to spread Krishna consciousness. Believe that. That's the truth. I was the chairman of the Temple Presidents Association globally in 1978 and 79, elected by my peers. I was also the chairman for North America. And all we were trying to do as a group was get some rights, because we had no rights to manage our own temples. All we had was these people coming in, outsiders, I called them. In Canada, they were Americans, bloody Americans. Tamal Krishna flew in. Hansaduna flew in. Satsrup flew in. Gopal Krishna flew in. Kirtananda flew in. Jayapataka flew in. Bhakti Charu Swami. Everybody wanted to be the guru in Toronto Temple. All of them came to see me and politic to become the guru. This was a political move by these people. Number 2, the most important, I just got some books that were released to me about the poisoning issue, written by a couple of devotees. They're large books, 8 or 900 pages long. So I'm trying to get through them, because our group is not about the poisoning of our guru. It's about poisoning of the guru tattva, the truth of the spiritual process of Krishna consciousness. Now, in this book, they state that the most important issue is to prove that Prabhupada was poisoned. That's what they're stating. Okay, they're entitled to their opinion. But we know that the worst thing that happened was that these people tried to usurp Prabhupada's position and become acharyas in this mission. Whether it was Bhavananda, who was absolutely unqualified to do this, Satsrup, who is proven now to be some kind of very mentally disturbed individual. Then you've got these other people, Bhaktivedanta, never heard of him before till recently, till the GBC released this, till I saw a speech by Kadamba Kanana a couple of days ago that was completely nonsense. This guy hasn't got a clue what our philosophy is. Did he read Ram Raghava? He didn't even repeat Prabhupada's name. He spoke some kind of philosophy. He quoted somebody else's Gita. Bros, please. This is not a joke. This is a very serious offense against the Parampara disciplic succession. And our group, there are many groups, I'm not sure what they're about, Ritvik groups, but I'm sure about our group and our membership that we're fixed on the platform that Prabhupada is our guru, Diksha guru, that we're initiating new people in through his Vani incarnation to become disciples of Prabhupada, and the results that we're getting are very good. The biggest problem our movement has faced, or I shouldn't say our movement, I ban people from our group. Hey, Ram Raghava, I ban them. You're not allowed to come here if you're an ISKCON guru or an ISKCON disciple or a follower of the Gaudiya Math, or you want to read these fake books that they've changed without authority. If you want to do these things, go hang out with Radhanath Swami and enjoy his dancing in front of Lord Chaitanya like he's the second incarnation. Go do it. For me, it makes me sick to my stomach. I have no taste for it. Their kirtans, their changing of the books, the changing of the deity worship, the changing of the management system. It just goes on and on and on and on. And it all comes from this illicit guru system. That's the thing that's ruined everything. The ambition of these people. Believe it. This is the fact. Yaśodā, please.
Balaram Prabhu had his hand up earlier.
Go ahead, Balaram.
Please.
No, that was already answered. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yaśodā, please.
This is a very important point because what we're facing right now is a full-fledged attack on the integrity of Prabhupada's teachings. And the reason I say that is that I keep making these comments repeatedly that we're seeing the introduction of new mantras in kirtans, some concocted, unheard of before mantras that they sing in Russia, in the temple, the ISKCON temple in Vrindavan, ISKCON temple in Varanasi, Benares, in Bombay. And they invent these mantras thinking that this is very melodious. They're playing the harmonium, they're dancing, the women are dancing like gypsies. But this is not what Srila Prabhupada gave. For example, in the Madhva Sampradaya and the Ramanuja Sampradaya, they have certain standards. And nobody can change the standard of deity worship and the given mantras that have been given by the Acharyas. They have that much respect. But in our movement, very soon after Prabhupada departed, everything started to be dismantled. The way of offering prasadam, the way of offering bhoga, the way of offering artik, the kirtan, the jayadvani at the end of the kirtan. Now they're even inventing new mantras. I mean, the Maha Mantra that has been given to us by Srila Prabhupada has been given in the Upanishad. This is not a new mantra. This is a very old mantra that was given by Lord Brahma to Narada Muni in the Kali Santarana Upanishad. That Upanishad explains the meaning of the 16th word of the Maha Mantra. And it says that this is the essence, sarva vedeshu drishyate. This is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. But now we have this situation where people are inventing mantras with these gypsy dances and everything, and it's like, and they don't even think what they're doing. One of these kirtans, there was a Swami from ISKCON, one of these voted-in Swamis, and he was there participating in it. I'm thinking, there's no way this would have been allowed during Prabhupada's manifested presence. I was personally there several times when Srila Prabhupada sent his personal secretary or his personal servant downstairs at Mayapur and told the devotees, Prabhupada said, stop the kirtan. What are you people doing? You're chanting Hari Bol for 20 minutes. Prabhupada said, just chant Hare Krishna. Everybody knows when Prabhupada came to New York in the beginning, there was that famous line, chant Hare Krishna and your life will be sublime. What happened to that? What happened to it? Why are they inventing these new mantras and these new ways of offering to the deities? Prabhupada gave everything. And when they start to break that system, when they start to break that connection with Srila Prabhupada and disobey his instruction and change this and change that, everything will break down. Christianity took 1900 years to break Christ's teaching. In our movement is what just a few years after Prabhupada departed, they demolished the Bhagavad Gita. In 1983, the nonsense Bhagavad Gita, the concocted Bhagavad Gita, was published. So devotees should be very aware of this. We're not interested in personal attacks against any one group or one individual. What we want is we want to follow Srila Prabhupada as he is, and we want to have his teachings and his books as he is. We don't need all these concoctions. Just like we discussed previously in one of these classes, how the Caitanya-caritāmṛta had been changed. They changed the words of Srila Prabhupada when Prabhupada said that Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, who initiated Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur. They changed that because they didn't like it. It didn't conform to their idea of what the disciplic succession should be. Anyway, let Balaram Prabhu make a comment on that. Go ahead, Balaram Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes, I'm reading from the Prameya Ratnavali of Srila Baladev Vidyabhasan. And in paragraph 5, it says, the mantras which are without any sampradaya, which do not belong to any schools, are considered fruitless. Hence, in the age of Kali, there will arise 4 founders of schools, namely Sri, Brahma, Rudra, and Sanak. All these are Vaishnavas sanctifying the earth and will arise from the Supreme Person in Utkala in the Kali age. And the note is, those were the 4 founders of the 4 schools of Vaishnavism. The Vishnu mantras found in the works of any of these 4 have the power of conferring salvation, but not so if found anywhere else. The ancient law is that every pupil must have a guru who belongs in direct apostolic succession to any of these 4. Therefore, a Vishnu mantra not belonging to any sampradaya cannot produce any effect, though recited for a long time. The next verse names the 4 human representatives through whom the above mentioned 4 divinities established their sects. And we know that is Sri inspired Ramanuja, Brahma inspired Madhvacharya, Rudra inspired Vishnu Swami, and the 4 Kumaras, Sanak, and the rest inspired Namidvija. So that is from Srila Baladev Vidyabhasan's Prameya Ratnavali.
Very important. Very important. Any other remarks or questions? Ram Raghava, shall we proceed with the reading?
Yes, please.
Text number 45. Guru Krishna Rupa Han Shastrera Pramani Guru Rupi Krishna Kripa Karena Bhaktagani. Guru, the spiritual master, Krishna Rupa, as good as Krishna. Han is Shastrera, of revealed scriptures. Pramani, by the evidence. Guru Rupe, in the form of the spiritual master. Krishna, Lord Sri Krishna. Kripa, mercy. Karena, distributes. Bhaktagane, unto his devotees. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. According to the deliberate opinion of all revealed scriptures, the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. Lord Krishna, in the form of the spiritual master, delivers his devotees. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The relationship of a disciple with his spiritual master is as good as his relationship with the Supreme Lord. A spiritual master always represents himself as the humblest servitor of the personality of Godhead, but the disciple must look upon him as the manifested representation of Godhead. I have a question here before we go on to the next text. Okay, it says in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta that when the spiritual master speaks, it's to be understood that the personality of Godhead is speaking through him. Just like in 1976, there was an interview with a newsman in New York, and one disciple says, "Well, when a devotee is getting inspiration from Krishna, that means his intelligence." And Prabhupada, it stopped him. Prabhupada says, no, Krishna tells the pure devotee directly. So when people advance this theory or this foolish idea that Prabhupada, some way or other, appointed these original 11 as gurus, as Diksha gurus, and by now any reasonable person can see they've all fell down or deviated, does it mean that Krishna was telling Srila Prabhupada the wrong instruction? That Prabhupada, some way or other, got confused, he didn't know who was qualified, who was unqualified, who was fit, who was unfit to be a guru? Because there are theological implications to that foolish idea that Prabhupada appointed these original 11 as Diksha gurus. If people believe that, then that means that would by logic say that Prabhupada made a mistake and that Krishna told his pure devotee the wrong choice. But we know, according to Shastra, that is not possible. That is not possible. The pure devotee doesn't make that kind of a mistake. Any comments about this?
Yes.
Yes, Viśvakarmā, go ahead.
What Prabhupada, if we use our common sense, we can understand that a guru is self-manifested by the mercy of his guru. So in this particular case, this purport, if we look at this purport, Vinkat, the relationship of a disciple is with his spiritual master is as good as his relationship with the Supreme Lord. A spiritual master always represents himself as the humblest servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the disciple must look upon him as the manifested representation of Godhead. So in the particular case of Srila Prabhupada, the devotees were taught that he was totally surrendered to Krishna, to his guru, and became transparent via media for the Supreme Lord by repeating the words of his spiritual master. So Prabhupada manifested himself as a pure devotee by his example. Whatever great men do, common men follow. Whatever standards they set by exemplary acts, the whole world pursues. So the word acharya, one who teaches by example, was exemplified by Srila Prabhupada. Did he want his disciples to also become acharyas? Teach by example? Yes, he did. He did not want them to elect people into the position of guru who couldn't teach by example. In the case of the current mission that he started, there is so much mismanagement, there's so much abuse, there is so much fault going on in that mission that it really demonstrates profoundly how these members are not teaching by example at all. Actually, their motives are based on what we call the 3 Ps, profit or pad, profit, adoration, and distinction. That's their motivation. It's self-manifested. So this idea that these people can accept this role of guru and then misuse it has been a dramatic demonstration of their fault, not Prabhupada. Look at Prabhupada's opportunity was given to all of us. It's his instructions. He was in part, one thing, Yaśodā, and you know this, he was not partial to any devotee. Oh, he might have had a special liking for Brahmananda, or maybe a special liking for someone else that helped him in the early days. But was he partial, Ram Raghava, to anybody? Not at all. In fact, when Prabhupada came to Toronto, he was so kind to me personally, he acted more as a servant than as spiritual master. In fact, he told me, I've told this story before in another group, there was a lot of confusion when Prabhupada came, when we were trying to take care of him. Because we were inexperienced young people, young disciples, we were making mistakes, and I was really humiliated by it, because being the president, I was responsible. We forgot, we didn't know how to make a proper sitting position for him in his room. We didn't have a proper desk. So when he got there, we had to change everything overnight. He said, oh, I can't stay like here with this type of set of circumstances. So we went ahead, we got all the devotees, you know what it was like, Prabhus, that were around Prabhupada. Everybody was like a mad rush to do everything to try to please Prabhupada so we could at least be comfortable and take up his preaching work and his translation work for all of us. So then there was all kinds of commotion for people that wanted to see Prabhupada. I had arranged a meeting with Joe O'Connell. I had different press people coming, and he wanted me to take him to see a guy, Batra. This Batra guy that was coming around was bugging me, that he wanted Prabhupada to come to his house. He had helped us a little bit with the purchase of the temple. So I went to Prabhupada and I asked him, I got called into the room. I was sitting with him by myself. And first I apologized for all the mistakes, Ram Raghava. I was really worried about what we had done or not done for him. And he looked at me very humbly. He said, that's all right. Everything's okay. He wasn't fussy. He wasn't demanding. He was quite humble. In fact, he was very appreciative that all of our team had worked so hard to make this great achievement of buying this great building to glorify Krishna. He called it a topmost triumph for Krishna in a letter he sent to me. Then I said to him, he had a tooth problem. He had some kind of toothache, and therefore he wasn't feeling that well. And I thought, there's all this demand from everyone to do this, do that. And I had to go present this to him and see what he would say. I was thinking, Yaśodā, I was thinking to myself, I may get chastised. And Prabhupada looked at me and he said, that's okay. You just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So Prabhupada took the role as the servant of the servant of the servant of his spiritual master. He took the role as a true Acharya of our mission. And if the devotees can adapt that understanding of Prabhupada's personal example, not by legislation, then they'll be able to understand how to become guru for other people, new people, especially Sishya Guru, which is very important. I have so many different Sishya Gurus in this group, which I appreciate a lot. Because if I have a problem or a question, I'll call you up and ask you, what should I do? So that we move together in a spirit of cooperation. Ram Raghava, could you speak, please?
Balaram Prabhu had his hand up.
Okay.
Yes, just one time when Srila Prabhupada was very demanding. It was 1973 when I was just a bhakta waiting for my initiation, and Srila Prabhupada was visiting the Sydney temple, and the devotees had made a nice little accommodation. Someone had moved out from the temple, from the house next door, and made the facility for Srila Prabhupada to stay. So we got back from the airport. Srila Prabhupada was driven back in the beat-up old combi van that we had at the time. We were very short on Lakshmi at the time. So Srila Prabhupada arrived, and he came into his room, looked around, said, "This is very nice." And then all of a sudden he stopped, and his voice changed, and he said, "Where are my books? Where are my books?" So Madhavisa, who was the GBC at the time, he sent me out immediately in the van to go and buy a bookcase so we could put Srila Prabhupada's books up. So that was the first thing he said, "Where are my books? I want to read." So that was one demand that Srila Prabhupada, we had to act on immediately. Thank you.
Venkat, comment, please.
I don't really have any comment. I mean, thank you very much. That was really, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So thank you.
Yaśodā Prabhu, if you want to continue on.
Yes. Text number 46. Acharyamam vijaniyan avamanyena karichit namartya buddhya suyeta sarabadeva mayu guruhu. Acharyam, the spiritual master. Mam, myself. Vijaniyat, one should know. Na avamanyate, one should never disrespect. Karichit, at any time. Na, never. Martya buddhya, with the idea of his being an ordinary man. Asuyeta, one should be envious. Sarvadeva, of all demigods. Mayaha, representative. Guruhu, the spiritual master. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. One should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. Purport by Prabhupada. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:17-27, spoken by Lord Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the four social and spiritual orders of society. He was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. He is like a parent. Without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. The spiritual master is also called Acharya, or a transcendental professor of spiritual science. The Manu Samhita 2:140 explains the duties of an Acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. The ceremony performed to initiate a disciple into the study of spiritual science is called Upaniti, or the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master. One who cannot be brought nearer to a spiritual master cannot have a sacred thread, and thus is indicated to be a Shudra. The sacred thread on the body of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. It is worth nothing if worn merely to boast of high parentage. The duty of the spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with the sacred thread ceremony. And after this samskara or purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born a Shudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duly authorized to award a disciple the right to be a Brahmana, if he finds him perfectly qualified. In the Vayu Purana, an Acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all Vedic literature, explains the purpose of the Vedas, abides by their rules and regulations, and teaches his disciples to act in the same way. Only out of his immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of an Acharya, there are no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He is the supreme personality of servitor Godhead. It is worthwhile to take shelter of such of a steady devotee who is called Ashraya Vigraha, or the manifestation or form of the Lord of whom one must take shelter. If one poses himself as an Acharya, but does not have an attitude of servitorship to the Lord, he must be considered an offender. And this offensive attitude disqualifies him from being an Acharya. The bona fide spiritual master always engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By this test, he is known to be a direct manifestation of the Lord and a genuine representative of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Such a spiritual master is known as Acharya Deva. Influenced by an envious temperament and dissatisfied because of an attitude of sense gratification, mundaners criticize a real Acharya. In fact, however, a bona fide Acharya is non-different from the personality of Godhead, and therefore to envy such an Acharya is to envy the personality of Godhead himself. This will produce an effect subversive to transcendental realization. As mentioned previously, a disciple should always respect the spiritual master as a manifestation of Sri Krishna. But at the same time, one should always remember that a spiritual master is never authorized to imitate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. False spiritual masters pose themselves as identical with Sri Krishna in every respect to exploit the sentiments of their disciples. But such impersonalists can only mislead their disciples, for their ultimate aim is to become one with the Lord. This is against the principles of the devotional cult. The real Vedic philosophy is Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, which establishes everything to be simultaneously one with and different from the personality of Godhead. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami confirms that this is the real position of a bona fide spiritual master, and says that one should always think of the spiritual master in terms of his intimate relationship with Mukunda, Sri Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami in his Bhakti Sandarbha 213 has clearly defined that a pure devotee's observation of the spiritual master and Lord Shiva as one with the personality of Godhead exists in terms of their being very dear to the Lord, not identical with him in all respects. Following in the footsteps of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami, later acharyas like Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur have confirmed the same truths. In his prayers to the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur confirms that all the revealed scriptures accept the spiritual master to be identical with the personality of Godhead, because he is a very dear and confidential servant of the Lord. Gaudiya Vaishnavas therefore worship Srila Guru Deva, the spiritual master, in the light of his being the servitor of the personality of Godhead. In all the ancient literatures of devotional service, and in the most written songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, and other unalloyed Vaishnavas, the spiritual master is always considered either one of the confidential associates of Srimati Radharani or a manifested representation of Srila Nityananda Prabhu. Well, there's a lot here to digest, and we don't have a whole lot of time, but Jiva Goswami Prabhu, would you like to comment on this? Make a few comments? Your mic.
Thank you, Prabhu. I think it's amazing to digest all the different points made in this one particular purport. And if I can just keep this in the forefront of my mind, there's never any problem in terms of explaining to those outside of the Prabhupada Disciples Association what our position really is, what the reason behind our adamant support of Srila Prabhupada. He's made it so clear to us that there's just no room for doubt, no room for indecision on our part. All we have to do is remember that Srila Prabhupada has the power to make any of us a disciple. He has the power today to do that. And I'm most humbled by this particular capacity of Srila Prabhupada. One question I have for the group is that I'm stuck with a lot of edited books from my time in corporate ISKCON. Does anybody have any experience in how to recycle those books, or should I just burn them?
Viśvakarmā, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to make two comments, but I'll first answer the question. Prabhu, that is a dilemma. Yes, I know what you mean. Like I have a lot of yellow Gitas that were given to me. In other words, the ISKCON group was going around and distributing boxes of Gitas to hotels for free to have them put in the rooms. As you know, the East Indian community is very prominent in the motel and hotel business in America and Canada. So I didn't know what to, I still don't know what to do with the books. It's a dilemma. I'm not burning them, of course, but I've got them stored at my house here. I managed to replace some of the books with new editions of the Gita, like this one here that Jittarati did. And by the way, I just wanted to mention about the BBT, just as more information. The BBTI has been canceled. Its registration has been canceled due to lack of filing to the California government, where it was registered by this guy Gupta. So nowadays, the books are being plundered by different people illegally. They do not have the rights to reproduce these books. So what we're doing is we're moving forward to try to produce the books. I know I don't really have a good answer for you, brother, because, you know, it is a problem. But the solution for us is to continue on with our work and our goal to publish books with the BBT logo, which I have permission to use from the current trustee that was assigned that position from Hansa Duda before he died. I've seen all the documents. I've spoken to Hansa Duda personally before he passed away. I heard him speak sincerely about his commitment to Prabhupada. And he certainly changed at the end and explained to me that he had never relinquished his authority as a BBT trustee, and he passed it on to a devotee that came from the Hamilton Center here, and by a very interesting set of circumstances, ended up in San Francisco partially through my arrangement. Met Hansaduta, and the Hansaduta, because he was in the Navy, and this devotee was also a lieutenant in the Russian Navy, he became attracted to him, and he wrote him up as the representative for him as a BBT trustee. So that position of BBT trustee, we're going to be using that to get the authorization from them to publish books. And it is our hope that within our group, in the future, we'll be able to reproduce the Gita. We'll be able to reproduce Easy Journey for other planets, to other planets, Sri Upanishad, like that, all the different books. And we're collecting the authentic books pre-72. You know, for example, there was a recent set of books that was released by one devotee who we made on Sankirtan here in Canada back in 1972 or 3. His name was Jitterati. And he's published a set of a volume, 9-set series of Srimad Bhagavatams, but it has been edited by Jayadvaita. So even though there's a claim that it's a purified set of books, it actually has been changed by Jayadvaita, and a misunderstanding has come about as a result of that to have these books distributed. So we're hoping, everyone, that we can eventually get all of us working together with the one purpose of reproducing the original books that Prabhupada presented to us in 1972 and 74 while he was still in our presence. So that's the one answer I can give to you. That's for a further discussion. We're moving ahead with it, Jiva Goswami, to solve the problem. And we're going to call upon everybody when we get ready to print the books. We'll be raising some money to print these books and then distribute them from Canada out to you there and to wherever we can, or however we can do it intelligently with our group, collectively coming up with the realizations of what to do. You know, this is something a management team does. Number 2, here Prabhupada speaking about the position of guru. What is a qualified guru? Now, I want all of us to understand here that Prabhupada is not speaking about himself here. He's speaking about his relationship with his guru and how he saw himself as the servant of his guru, to show us how we should have the mentality, the same mentality that he has, we should have towards him. He's not telling Vinkat that you be this way. He's not doing that. This is a very subtle point. He's trying to explain to you the way he saw his relationship with his spiritual master. And in this way, he's connected to the disciplic succession. So this is something that is not being taught by these current people that are initiating others. Rather, they're looking to solicit or convert people to their group or their following. That you can tell by their speech. I just saw a sannyasi speak the other day. I don't know what his name was. I spend time in curiosity to speak these things, to study these different people. And he was mentioning, oh, you need the guru to connect you to Radha Krishna pastimes. Yeah, no kidding. You need a guru, everyone, to be connected to Radha Kunda. Oh, yes. Thank you very much for telling us that. You need a guru to connect with Vrindavan. What are the Vrindavan pastimes of Krishna? What was he missing out when he kept speaking? I'm listening to him. I'm going, why don't you say who the guru is? Why are you leaving that out? It was conspicuous by its absence that he was leaving it out because he wanted his audience to think, you're my guru. He wanted to quote another verse to show how intelligent he was. And he quoted another Sanskrit verse. Look at how advanced I am as a sannyasi. Believe me, this ISKCON program is a hoax, a fraud, a compromised position amongst all these people in order to maintain their positions. That's as simple as it is. It's called the guru business. Yaśodā, please.
There is a purport from Srila Prabhupada in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is third canto, chapter 9, text number 12. Srila Prabhupada explains, sometimes the Lord himself descends for missionary activities, as he did in the form of Lord Chaitanya, but mostly he sends his bona fide representatives, and thus he shows his causeless mercy towards the non-devotees. The Lord is so satisfied with his pure devotees that he wants to give them the credit for missionary success, although he could do the work personally. This is the sign of his satisfaction with his pure Nishkama devotees compared to the Sakama devotees. So this is a very important point, that Krishna sends great empowered personalities like Srila Prabhupada to teach human society and show the perfect example of the bhakti path, the bhakti marga. This is a very important point. Any other comments or questions?
Prabhu, I think what we're going to do is come to the conclusion of today's program. It's 9:27. If anybody does have a last question or comment, please bring it forward now.
I don't really have any comments, just that I feel very privileged and happy to be in this group with such exalted devotees like Balaram and Venkat and Jiva Goswami, Ram Raghava, and everybody here. Just feel very, very, Prabhupada would be very happy with these discussions. He is very happy. So next week we can discuss further about this purport that we just read, and devotees will have a whole week to think of new realization, new points and everything, and we can discuss some more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Ram
good.
Raghava, please play the closing tape for us. Thank you. Of the chanting. Ram Raghava.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Glories to Prabhupada. Hari Bol.